I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in the Central Plains of Canada. My mother spoke French as her maternal language, while my father spoke English. I grew up speaking only English, but I did take a few years of French classes in school. I graduated from University of Manitoba with a Bachelor of Arts majoring in psychology with a minor in English literature. I returned to do a master's in English literature, finishing all my coursework, but moved to Quebec before finishing my thesis. As a graduate student, I taught 1 year of composition and 1 year of English literature to first-year university students. Arriving in Quebec, Canada's only French-speaking province, I started teaching English as a second language. Eventually, I moved to Ottawa, the nation's capital, where I was hired to open and manage a language school. I continued to teach while also serving as the director of the English department. It was at this time I wanted to be a good example to my students and decided that I would become proficient in French. I moved across the river to Quebec and lived in a French-speaking community for 20 years. Eventually, I became able to live in French as easily as I could in English. In Canada, English and French are the official languages, so to work for the federal government in the nation's capital, it is necessary to speak both languages well. I was hired as an English writer and spent a year writing correspondence for Canada's Minister of Defence. I then went to work at Library and Archives Canada, where I worked as the principal speechwriter for the Librarian and Archivist of Canada, writing speeches in English for national and international audiences for 5 years. Later, I became a senior communications advisor for the agency, specializing in internal communications. While working for the government, I decided that I would learn Spanish. At first, I was reluctant because it took me such a long time to master French. However, it didn't take me long to realize that I could learn Spanish fairly quickly without ever having to go to a classroom. Drawing upon my experience as a language teacher, I was able to navigate the web and find the resources that would help me. I avoided spending too much time on applications and lessons that promised to make me fluent in Spanish in only 6 months, studying only 15 minutes a day. To practice my spoken Spanish, I traveled to Cuba twice and to Spain once. But what really made the difference was the language exchanges with my online Spanish-speaking partners, in particular with my future wife, Tula, from Ecuador. Having decided to leave the federal government, I began to explore the idea of moving to a warm, inexpensive place to live in Latin America. At the same time, I began a long-distance romance with Tula that had us traveling back and forth between Canada and Ecuador and Skyping every day in both Spanish and English. In the summer of 2019, I moved to Ecuador, and later that year, I became a permanent resident, living with Tula's family in Guayaquil. Having acquired about 20 years of language learning and teaching experience, I am now offering my services online as an English language teacher and coach. To make sure that I have a good grasp of the latest information concerning both teaching English online and the manner in which we learn, I have successfully completed the 120-hour Bridge Teaching English as a Foreign Language online certification course, as well as the internationally recognized Learning How to Learn course. Soon, you will be able to listen to my podcasts, which will also feature transcripts, comprehensive lessons, and flashcards. If you are serious about mastering English, I suggest that you visit my website at allinforenglish.com and click on the Become a Member Patron icon to gain access to my learning resources. As well, you can book a chat, a class, or a coaching session with me. Bye for now, and I wish you all the best in your journey to becoming proficient in English.